This weekend over at the Kimball Art Center, a new exhibit is opening up, which takes a very unique look at the Great Salt Lake. And we're going to be talking with the artist and someone from the Great Salt Lake Institute about what these photos mean and what they say about our environment. Welcome back. And, you know, we love to talk about art here on the program, but we also like to talk about science and the environment as well. Two issues that are extremely important and extremely relevant to the state of Utah. And joining me now are two women who definitely are in that same vein. We've got artist Diane Tuft, photographer and artist, and the director of the Great Salt Lake Institute, Dr. Bonnie Baxter. Ladies, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
So you, Diane, decided that you were going to take get a new perspective on the Great Salt Lake with your camera. And you've created an exhibit called Salt Lake Reconsidered that is going to be on display here at the Kimball Art Center. Tell us a little bit about how this project got started.
Well, it really got started by photographing the spiral jetty. I have been
one of the most well-known but least seen in person
exactly.
Art installations.
And I was very excited to see it. And very excited to photograph it. I specialize in photographing landscapes by taking advantage of the light source that we can't see, infrared and ultraviolet. And so I was going with the Dia Foundation to photograph the spiral jetty with infrared film and in a helicopter. While I was going over the Salt Lake, I looked down and I saw these amazing colors. And I said, oh my gosh, what is this? Because I'm not from Utah, so I really had never experienced the Salt Lake. And found out that the Salt Lake does, the environment for the Salt Lake is special for ultraviolet light, and the colors were all about what Bonnie does a lot of research in, about these different microorganisms. And there was this whole college that was specializing in basically doing research on the amount of ultraviolet light that the Salt Lake had. So I went back, I took photographs of the whole Salt Lake 2 months later, and that's the exhibit that will be shown.
So did you have to have this scientific knowledge and the scientific research, knowing sort of what was causing these various things, to pick the right film and right filters and everything to
Not
get
at all. I mean, I just looked down and I saw these amazing pictures, and I just shot them. And then I did the research, and then because I couldn't figure out why everything was so beautiful. And it was more enhanced when I got back than it was even when I was photographing it. And trying to do research to this point, in fact, just a few days ago, finally figuring out why the digital camera, I was taking photographs of the spiral jetty with a regular Leica film camera, an infrared film, but the ultraviolet was done with a digital camera, and why the digital camera would capture so much ultraviolet light. Most camera manufacturers try to get rid of all the ultraviolet light that comes into the camera, and but I was looking at all this ultraviolet light and not understanding it. And just recently, and my theory is that basically the sensors do something that captures a lot of ultraviolet light, and the camera manufacturers are trying to get rid of it. But we're just figuring out some of the research, and there's basically a sensor that is a white balance sensor that is very affected by ultraviolet light, and I think that's the other enhancement.
You know, we actually have some of the images from the exhibition. 53, Mickey. There we go. Oh, okay. All right, wonderful. So we've already been showing some of them, and you can just see some of these amazing colors. And Dr. Bonnie Baxter, tell people a little bit about what it is we're seeing. People are not used to seeing bright red color in a lake, even knowing that it is extremely briny and salty. So, what is this that we are seeing?
So those are the microorganisms, the bacteria and the algae of the lake, and they're very tiny, so you can't see them, but they have pigments in their membranes which pick up light and reflect it back to you. So you see their color without actually seeing the tiny cells themselves.
And we see the red, but in this exhibition, there's reds, there's blues, there's greens, there's yellows. So, how many different types of bacteria and microorganisms are there out there in the lake?
Well, that's part of what we're trying to find out. Hundreds in any one given spot, different types. Millions of cells, millions of organisms, but maybe 200 to 500 different types in 1 cup of water. So there are all kinds of different microbes that have evolved to live in this special salty place. And Diane's work has, I think, if people come and see your pictures, they'll understand, but really spark an interest in looking at this lake as a series of ecosystems and not one single ecosystem. There's such variety and difference all around this lake.
So is this something where you're seeing red algae and things like that creates a whole new microenvironment that other species thrive and live upon, whereas something green or yellow you'll see completely different creatures?
Right. So in the 1950s, they built a railroad causeway across the lake, not the Antelope Island Causeway. It's north of there. And the northern part of the lake has gotten very salty since that time. The Wasatch runoff doesn't go into the north arm at the level it does at the south arm. So the south arm is around 12% salinity right now, and the north arm is about 30% salinity, 25 to 30. So the ocean is about 3.5. That gives you an idea of what we're dealing with. So some microbes might like it better at the 12% level. Some might like it better at the 30% level. So you're going to see really different organisms based on the different environmental conditions.
And tell people a little bit more about the Great Salt Lake Institute and
sure.
and what exactly where it's based out of and sort of what your mission is.
Yes, so Westminster started the Great Salt Lake Institute last year. Most of our funding is for our science efforts. So we are interested in research, we're interested in stewardship, we're interested in facilitating conversations between, say, the industry and the nonprofits that are interested in the lake. We're interested in being a centerpiece and a network for all those conversations. But we were also very interested in bringing in an interdisciplinary focus in looking at the lake. Bringing art and science together was one of the things we talked about. So when Diane and I first had a conversation a few months ago, I was elated because this is part of our mission is to bring disciplines together. So we've had such incredible conversations about UV light, the effects on the microbes of the lake, and then the effects that Diane sees in her photographs. And what's the relationship to all those things? It's been really fun. And we're actually going to give a talk at her exhibit if people are interested in this kind of thing.
And that's going to be when?
Saturday night.
Okay.
6 o'clock.
And that's up at the Kimball Art Center.
Exactly.
Do you think of yourself as an environmental photographer, or did this just sort of happen and that you ended up with photos that really have this environmental mission of sparking discussion about the lake?
Well, my photos are definitely mostly landscape, and even when they're not landscape, they look like landscapes because I'm very involved with nature. And my theory is that nature really has a hidden spirit. And as Westerners, we really don't look at it like that. But all over the world, the Japanese worship rocks and Indians worship rivers. And so we're in the West, we just take it for granted. So I really don't take nature for granted. I really believe that there is something there that we don't understand. So by using the light that we can't see, I feel like we're kind of getting into the spirit of the landscape. So I would say I'm mostly a landscape photographer, and that the spirituality of the landscape comes through. And because you love landscape, you love your environment, so no matter where you are, you get really completely wrapped up in what you're seeing and feeling at the time.
Well, that is wonderful, and I love this idea of a convergence between art and science and ecology and environmentalism. It's a great way to make science and nature accessible to really everyone. Diane, Dr. Baxter, thank you both so much for coming in.
Thank you.
If people want more information on you, do you have your own website?
I have a website, DianeTuff.com.
Okay, and Great Salt Lake Institute?
.org.
Easy enough.
Yes.
Ladies, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.